Now, TikTok. You have a kid not only with his huddle, but TikTok, because most of the students, they don't look at huddle, outside of athletics. But when they start passing around the huddle or the TikTok, that becomes a popular thing, and it drives hype. And that seems to be the thing, is hype. Get you somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Get your foot in the door.
If it was me playing in this day and age, I'd be watching all these before I get yelled at the next week by the coaches. I'd be prepared. And
Yeah, no, you're right.
Okay,
And
that's why I did this. That's why I did this. I was looking for this.
Everything is a clip.
Yep.
And welcome to this week's edition of the 941 Sports Zone. I'm John Massoni here with my co-hosts and familiar faces to the 941 Sports Zone, our football experts, Mr. Bill Madden and Mr. Mike Lake. Thank you guys for being here again tonight.
Appreciate it, John.
We're gonna probably dive into a little bit more college football this week. I think college football, from my perspective, has had a few more I would say more interesting stories that have developed over the first month or so of the year. So kind of diving into a few things, see what you guys think, how things are, and stories that are going to be progressing as the year goes on, and then maybe into next year with all the changes with the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. We'll get into a lot of that. With that, what I'll first do though is go over last week's show. If you guys, I'm sure you both watched. John Reynolds from SNN was my guest again, and John and I kind of did a little more deeper dive into what's going on in high school football in the area. We both agreed, and I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you are involved with high school football for years, and Bill, I know you follow it as well. But this area, the 941 area code, this area, it seems like the level of play overall has risen up. To the point where it's every game is highly contested, very competitive, and playing outside of our area, really doing well in some cases.
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago about the reclassification.
Correct.
I do think that you've seen getting out of certain powerhouse divisions, and that's allowed people, because kids want to play that they're making a difference and making a winner.
Right.
So you get that snowball rolling. I think that helps attract talent. Now, you also got to have the coaching, the leadership. And I do know there's been some coaches that have moved in from other places that have come in and have done a pretty good job. Scotty Lyles,
Littles,
he's doing
Booker.
a wonderful job. Booker, Booker Nation, when they're going, that's a program to be. That is a great program.
And then Manatee County as well. They've sort of, there's always sort of shifts in power and new coaches, and there's always sort of some. But right now across Manatee County, they're all putting some competitive and more than competitive teams in the field. And Manatee is sort of back on the rise with an undefeated record at this point.
Just a matter of time.
Yeah,
just a matter of time. With that talent.
Back in the day, Southeast, Manatee,
big
programs. But one thing I noticed is that along with Venice and other teams, they're playing all these big name programs across the state, even across the United States. So it's pretty cool when you see them. They play in the road and be on TV. John, when you're announcing, or going to even on ESPN. Venice has been a couple times, so that's a big change that I noticed.
Yeah, and like I said, you're absolutely right. You got a chance to do the live streaming. What you see now is that the production level, our guys here at Vibrant Aspect Media do a fantastic job, not only with this program, but also the coaches show for the Venice, and then of course the live streaming, which is really kind of it broadcasts out. They can look and see where they're watching, and we know where some people are watching from. We get. I mean, I could tell everybody a million times, like, hey, what's going on? I say, see, I'm not talking to you. I'm actually doing the game right now.
Yeah,
but I will give you the score.
Those telestrators
no,
are awesome.
To you.
No, I need to know.
Yeah.
But it really has sort of, it's become a much larger entity. And right now, and in a lot of cases, doing what we've done here with Vibrant Aspect with the 941 Sports Zone, is giving opportunities to all the kids in the area to kind of get notoriety. And I mean, it's great to see I mean, how many times maybe you guys got interviewed once or twice for the Gondolier, and it was like after practice or whatever it may have been. But now they have opportunities not only from SNN and Channel 7 and wherever else, but they get a chance to go on a show like this and be able to be out there and talk about what they're doing, where they're headed. And it's kind of a cool thing. And I think those kids are becoming very savvy, and they're knowing where their opportunities might lie. In some cases, you see it. I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, but depending on where they're going, we had 5 or 6 quarterback changes in the area. Where you never saw that before. Maybe
right.
One person would transfer, but it's happening now because opportunities available to them, and then they should take advantage of it. So yeah, high school football in particular is really on the rise. We can briefly talk about what John Reynolds and I did our predictions last week. He picked Riverview to win the game.
He did not.
He did.
I know. I saw it.
And I picked Venice, and big matchup in the area, long-time rival, especially in Sarasota County, and Indians pulled out a 35-14 victory, a big step for them. Now they have to take on Sarasota, which I'm very impressed with their coach, Josh Phillips, a guy who seems to have his pedigree is ridiculous. I mean, Ivy League education, coached in California, coached at the college level, played in the pros. So you have all that different, that aspect of it. Those are the kind of folks who are becoming high school football coaches because they think they feel as though they're going to make a difference at this level. And it's been a really, really, really interesting watching how these guys sort of, come around and make their mark on the area.
Absolutely. I just wanted to jump back to real quick what you were talking about with the kids and the opportunities to get their names out. Because, like you said, there was maybe the game of the week. TV very rarely came down to the games.
Yeah.
Now, TikTok. You have a kid not only with his huddle, but TikTok, because most of the students, they don't look at huddle, outside of athletics. But when they start passing around the huddle or the TikTok, that becomes a popular thing, and it drives hype. And that seems to be the thing is hype get you somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Get your foot in the door.
If it was me playing in this day and age, I'd be watching all these before I get yelled at the next week by the coaches. I'd be prepared. And
you're right.
Okay, and that's why I did this. That's why I did this. I was looking for this.
Everything is a clip.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can get a clip. And like I said, and we understand that in doing what we do. We look for clips and things that may have been said, a hot button issue, or whatever it may be, because in the context of any football game, you're going to have a certain amount of clips, and the kids themselves know how to make their own clips for themselves. They're not just. It's not even that they're savvy enough about putting the right play in the field.
Right.
They're putting clips of themselves as they're putting their resumes out there in so many ways.
Yes, that is a great point.
And there needs to be services for that, but now I guess you can do it yourself, and just as well as paying somebody out in the field.
The problem with that though is that your return on money, you're at a time dependent situation where this is your either junior or senior year, you're getting ready to go. You need all hands on deck. You need all eyeballs on this clip, or to get you into that recruiting slot or people to take notice of you.
Right.
So if it would be, God, as a kid, you pay $3,000, $4,000, whatever it may be to get on a recruiting service.
Yeah, who were the big names back there? Tom Lemming and
we talk about those guys all the time.
Right.
And then inside the state of Florida and all those smaller places, there are guys that have big name pull for what they do in the state of Florida, because they're the ones who say, hey, when you're having this camp or this thing in Orlando, this showcase, whatever they call them these days, you got to get there, and they get these kids kind of sort of sent to the right people. And if you're a kid who's maybe languishing in a little obscurity, getting your name out there and then trying to find your way is really a great way to get yourself a full ride scholarship to a school of your choice, or at least a school that you're going to feel like you're going to do well at.
No, I think it's a great thing, because there's not a lack of content now out there. You're not guessing. Right. You're not relying on people as much as you have in the past. So you have actual footage, and you can find out actually how good that player is or isn't just by all the media coverage we got now.
Well, I'll give you one quick thing, you guys. I'm sure you'll know this too. How important these things are just for how the kids get the notoriety and whatnot. If you look up TikTok High,
Yes.
on Google. It's Venice.
Yeah.
Because they did a dance on the staircase. There are people with a green screen that put the Venice High School staircase behind them so they can say they danced the TikTok Eye.
Yeah.
So you realize how important it can be, and what use it can be to an athlete in any sport to get their name out there and to find themselves a chance to go to the next level.
Get your eyeballs on the program so that you can see what the players,
right.
That's what the players are looking for. Is I just want to get my message. I want to get my school paid. I want to go somewhere.
Right.
Right. It doesn't hurt that Venice has been so successful the last few years.
Yeah, but it's right now. It's like you name it. You look around in these with all these programs, they're all doing the right things on social media. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Well, with that, we'll take our first break of the night. We are here as always at Douglas Jeep. We appreciate Greg and his whole staff here giving us the opportunity to use their really spacious, very, very non-sunny tonight, Francis. We're getting to that fall time where we're not going to have sun in the eyes or glare or whatever it may be, which is good. But we do enjoy ourselves here at Douglas Jeep. We appreciate them for doing everything else. And also Truly Nolan with our What's Bugging Me section of our program. So with that, we'll take our first break of the night, come back, and talk a little bit about, I'm going to get a little bit into the Tampa Bay Rays for a little bit, and then we'll get into the meat of the conversation tonight, which is going to be a little college football talk. With that, we'll be back on the 941 Sports Zone shortly.
What does Douglas Jeep, Chrysler Dodge Ram, and Venice High football have in common?
The perfect team and the perfect lineup.
Douglas Jeep, Chrysler Dodge Ram will always go the extra yard, so you can score big with the area's best selection and savings. So if you're looking for a championship vehicle lineup
and a dealership that tackles the competition,
visit Douglas Jeep, Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice.
And if you're looking for a championship football lineup, check out the Venice High football team.
Who supports Venice High football? Douglas does.
And welcome back to the 941 Sports Zone, broadcasting from Douglas Jeep. And guys, baseball's a long season. 162 is a lot of games. But the Tampa Bay Rays finished 99-63, which is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
Any year, any size payroll, however you want to put it, phenomenal year. But didn't win a division because the Orioles had an even superior year. And kudos to them. But the Rays are 99-63 and did it with an unbelievable array of patchwork players, lineups, you name it. Everything from catastrophic arm injuries to suspensions to you name it. And here they are able to make their way to the wild card series for Major League Baseball and taking on the Texas Rangers starting. We're starting. This will be out on Wednesday, but their first game is Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, tomorrow actually at 3 o'clock.
Right.
And the only better, higher scoring team than the Rays are the Rangers.
Right.
The Rangers were in first place for 160 games out of 162. Blew it the last 4 games of the season, and Houston overtook them, tied them, and then won the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So Texas had to go from Seattle, losing that, to Tampa, which is weird now. This is the setup for the wild card. It's best out of 3. All 3 games are in, we'll call it St. Pete.
Correct. Yeah. Right. And but the thing
which is odd.
I think what they're. I mean, the idea is to rather than trying to extend the game out, or the series out too long, and then trying to travel for one, is a tough deal. Because which one is it? Because at that point you're like, well, do I get the first one, and then I don't get the third one because that's the one I really want in case something happens. I want to have that advantage. So I think you're right, and that's. That little bit right there, Bill, I think that's what keeps the regular season relevant.
Yes.
Because you have to fight to the very end, right, to get all that stuff. I mean, guys, I just thought, Michael, throw it to you. Baseball, you look at it. I mean, do the Rays? I mean, from your perspective, does it just shock you that they are as good as they are with how they put together their team and with their budget?
All right, so it doesn't shock me because they've done this before, not to this level as far as the number of wins, but to do what they've done is, like you said, pieces and parts, pitchers, people getting bad situations. I mean, that could have been a huge distraction right there. I mean, that could have killed the season.
Early on, they were having trouble in the locker room with 2 guys who were stars, who didn't get along. They were throwing fists,
Yeah.
right? And so you look at they overcame all these different things. And I'll say this to you, Bill. I mean, is it Kevin Cash?
It's a combination of Kevin Cash, but I think it's more upper management too. I think it's them working together to field a team that kind of fits their capacity. But this year they went a different route, and they actually had power. Beginning of the year, if you remember, they were hitting homers almost every game.
They were way ahead in homers in the beginning of the year. Yep.
And they still finished as one of the top scoring teams in the league. Like I said, the only one better than them is Texas, so it could be a high-scoring affair. But the combination of Cash's patience and the upper management's, we'll say, lower payroll, but still bringing in great players, including a good shortstop who unfortunately was looking at possibly being an MVP before he got suspended.
Yeah.
He still finished like 9th in the league in batting average or something like
crazy.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, but some of the discretions he made.
Yeah,
he's
discussed
those, but
it's
not worth it.
It's murky waters, just to say the least, with what he's done. But you're right. But
they patch a hole.
Yeah. It's the
Every
next
time.
guy up. And one thing I'll say about this, when you watch them, they have a very sort of keen sense on when to do it, when the time is right. Timely hitting, putting the right guy in to be the, hey, 7th inning, let's get this guy at second base. Let's do this. Also having pieces that will fit into different spots. You could play third, he could play first, he could play right field, he could do this. And you see these they can kind of make these combo lineups up with guys that could play multiple positions. I think that's an interesting concept as well.
Well, hasn't that been their DNA though? From the because they are such a low payroll team that they have to get somebody that can play more than one position. They can play more than one position more than adequately. Probably the most recent guy that I could see was Ben Zobrist. That guy was a multi.
He might have been one of the first guys that was that guy.
Yes.
Because when they lost him, it was like losing 3 guys.
Yes.
And then he went right to the Cubs and won a championship.
Right.
And so you're absolutely right. But I think what they've done too, looking at it, trying to figure out, how do they make this all work? They've invested heavily in pitching.
Yeah.
Okay. And not just from a financial perspective, but invested heavily in getting arms. And so when they trade,
they use him as trade bait.
Meadows, or they trade guys over the years that
Chris Archer.
All of a sudden you're like, I can get 3 arms for his one, and how can I make this work? They can. I think that's what it is. I think guys are capable of coming in and performing as needed. Maybe not the spotlight guy or the number one starter kind of guy, but the guy who can come in and make things happen in a series. Like I say, let's go to a 7-game series. You might run into two really good pitchers for the Rays, but you're going to run into a lot of guys who can chew up innings and get you to the guy who is the good guy.
Yeah, and Kevin Cash plays the odds, so you're not going to see starters going deep.
No.
He pulls guys out early, but what the trend is with them also is to collect those arms, and also maybe trade them for some positional players that can play multiple positions and help the team. There's not a guy in the team, I think, that doesn't throw doesn't throw lower than 94, 95 miles per hour. That's the trend in the MLB these days.
Yeah.
Is get guys who can throw hard. And they certainly have that. And Glasnow is starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
But one thing I did notice that Major League Baseball still does not respect them. They got 3 games, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all starting at 3 o'clock.
Right.
No prime time. Everything at 3
because
o'clock.
the market in Texas and the market in Tampa is not the market they want to put on prime time. It's 100% right.
I know, but people who have to work or can't get in front of TV, I guess you can use your phone these days, but it's just a shame they don't have
any. Boss frowns upon that though when you're working.
Yeah.
Well, depends on how you handle yourself,
true,
right? If you stay productive, you're all right.
Yeah. So 3 o'clock games starting tomorrow.
And one thing I do want to point out too, Yandy Diaz won the batting title in American.
And he beat over the Texas Ranger by a percentage point.
And I understood it was a weird deal because I know that it was is either shortstop or is he. I forget who. I'm drawing a blank on it. But anyway, that they said that he was really close on being eligible, and there were some things he could have done to not play, but nonetheless, he did beat him out. and had a fantastic year. I mean, he wasn't a guy just hitting for average. That was for sure. He could do a lot of stuff. Great glove as well. So he's the guy right there that you look at the Rays, and he's been there a little while, longer than some of the guys, and I think he's showed his wares and what he's worth. Now it's going to be a matter of if they can hold on to him unless he wants to.
No, not a lot of first basemen win batting titles.
No.
You know, most of the guys on the corners
right.
are supposed to be home run and RBI guys, and he certainly is too. But his average has been phenomenal this year. Great hitter. Yeah,
no doubt. Well, again, if you guys are able to, watch the Rays. I mean, it's going to be fun. The place will be cranking. It'll be, I will say this for as poorly thought of as the Trop is, when they play those games in the playoffs, it does get a little. It gets a little loud. There's an atmosphere there.
Well,
Tampa has a loud crowd, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
they do. Yeah, I've been to a World Series game with Tampa. In fact, that only one they ever won in the World Series against the Phillies.
Okay.
I went to. I think it was Game 2 when they played years back. But new stadium coming up in a few years, so looking forward to that.
So, with that, does that finally stop the mid-market, low-market payroll?
I will tell you this. It is the beginning of the end of that. Because now will they ever be the Yankees or the Red Sox or never?
Yeah, I don't think so either.
There is a higher echelon of teams that you can't compete. If you do, you're going to lose because you'll be not really bankrupt, but bankrupt enough that you be like, I can't afford to have 4 guys I'm paying so much money than they're playing for the Padres. You know.
Yeah, that's the key. The management signed them to maybe 4 or 5 year deals, selling them with a year to go, getting something for them, and recycling. That's what they do. Well,
I think what's going to happen. So any baseball owner, football team owner, they're businessmen. They're smart. They're looking to make money. Football. If you get an ownership for in the NFL, they just print you money. You just vote stay the party line, and you're good to go. But in baseball, I mean, you got to be creative. They got the TV market. They got whatever they have, but.
And they have guaranteed contracts in baseball, which is a whole different
very
animal.
hard, right?
Yes.
So with this though, now because they're involved in the development of that area, now the revenue streams are not just going to be about the attendance anymore. It's going to be about what they're involved in and around that community. Which will again now you're truly invested in the community. So why would you want to take the linchpin to what the Rays being there, surrounded by hotels and condos and everything else, and you're a part of it? You don't want to take the team out of there because that's going to affect another investment. So I think that's going to keep the Rays firmly entrenched in St. Pete.
Well, I've been to a couple of games this year in the Rays. I'm not sure if you guys have or not, but that area across the street where the field's going to be built has been built up a lot.
Yes.
And that downtown area is revitalizing. So it's just going to add to it. Some people aren't happy with the housing not being the forefront of that development, but they're doing the best to trying to accommodate everybody. And it's going to be a great win, I think, for the Tampa Bay area.
But we've heard about stadiums before.
Right.
Does it actually?
This one's locked in.
It's not done until they start breaking ground.
I think they put a golden shovel. Does that count?
Maybe for Mickey D's and the Golden Arches, but I'll believe it when they start actually building that thing up because they've been talked about it so many times, and this still hasn't been finalized.
Well, the thing is there's always a potential when you have politicians involved that somebody could throw a monkey wrench into it and may have to be appeased in some way. But I will tell you this: I think there's enough people that have lined up.
Yeah.
Like, so when the Tampa group was trying to put something together, really it was one city commissioner, and he was sort of working really hard, and everybody else had tepid responses to it. They picked a spot that was not really the best spot. And so it was just sort of, I think it was sort of to see what they could offer. But this time, you got the mayor, you got the county commissioners, you got the city council, you got everybody kind of lined up, and you've got the Rays as well there. So I think this is the one time I said I would be surprised if it didn't happen, but nothing surprises me when it comes to major league sports in and around any area because you never know when it's gonna go sideways with that stuff.
Well, hopefully they can take care of Texas and move on. And
and listen, the thing is this is, no matter how they got there, how they're there, they are legitimately a contender, based on what they've done all year. They're not splashy. So when you play a series against them, I haven't looked it up, but I'd like to say how many series did they win, actual series in the year? Because they always seem that you watch them like win on Friday night, maybe have a tough one on Saturday, close them out on Sunday. I saw it week after week after week with that. Even for as hot as the Orioles got, there was only one little slip up for the Rays. Orioles got ahead of them, and they stayed within 2.5, 3 games of each other the entire time. So they were both had that same momentum. They weren't losing series over and over again and then having a big rush. They were just steady the whole time.
I guess you could say they're not surprising anymore. No one's surprised the Rays are here nationally at all.
But the thing is, they're not surprising, but they're not easy to beat because you look at them and say, how do we figure this out? Because the 9-hitter or the 7-hitter can just be as dangerous as the 2-hitter, and that's where they really come into. It's not get through the top of the lineup. It's
who am I doing? Who am I doing?
Let me think here.
Come on. That's Randy Rosarena. Okay. Come on.
I was trying to think.
I was like, Bill, it's the family show.
You guys must have seen that a couple times.
He does do that. Yes, I'm sorry.
And everybody's imitating across the league.
No doubt.
I'm surprised the Venice player hasn't done it yet.
Well, you never know. Watch TikTok.
Coming to Friday night.
Watch TikTok. All right, with that, we'll take our second break of the night and come back, and we'll start talking about the meat of our program tonight, which is college football, and so seeing and reviewing how the first month of the season went and what we think the trends are and where things are headed. So with that, we'll take a break, come back at Douglas Jeep after these messages.
What does Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram and Venice High football have in common?
The perfect team and the perfect lineup.
Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram will always go the extra yard, so you can score big with the area's best selection and savings. So if you're looking for a championship vehicle lineup
and a dealership that tackles the competition,
visit Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice.
And if you're looking for a championship football lineup, check out the Venice High football team.
Who supports Venice High football? Douglas does.
And we're back here at the 941 Sports Zone. And guys, we went to break, and I said, well, we're going to talk about the meat of our program tonight, which is the college football season. We're a month in, maybe a little bit more than a month in. And so far, I mean, there's been some really like national scene-stealing kind of situations in college football. No more the big story than Colorado and Coach Prime out there in Boulder. Just give me your thumbnail, what you think, what he's doing and where he's headed. And
media saturation.
Yeah.
And it's all Prime all the time. But if you go and by his numbers, he has brought that program visibility that they have not had. And the numbers, I mean, he's the one that did the business, how much it's brought to the community. Yeah. And for that, I guarantee you that anybody that's a critic in Boulder, they're not a critic anymore.
No, not when their restaurant or their flower shop or whatever is full up with folks.
Love the quote. I love the quote that he says, "You better get him now because this is the worst they're going to be." That should instill confidence in your program. I mean, he is all about self-belief. He is going to move mountains in his mind.
Right. And
if he gets them to where he thinks he's going to, that's going to be one of the bigger stories in the next 2 years.
And you guys tell me, the worst thing that Deion ever happened outside of, he's not a bad guy. He's just a bombastic guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think the worst thing he ever did is he got caught for fishing illegally in North Fort Myers one time.
That's where he's from. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was it.
Well, what's a bigger story? Deion, Colorado, Taylor Swift, and Travis Kelce. They're fighting. I think Travis and Swift took them over the last 2 weeks.
So the Swelsey or the trailer or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Did an amazing job of stealing the limelight from Deion. But I will say this: at the game last night for the Jets, she had Ryan Reynolds and his wife Blake Lively, Hugh Jackman, everybody, whoever was all in there. Right, there was a lot of names.
Right.
But Deion had so many people on the sidelines.
That's true.
I was watching that game and I saw it. I said, "There's no room." There's no room on the sidelines.
It reminded me of the old Miami days. I think you mentioned that way back when.
I've never seen
when
it.
The Canes were bigger than the Dolphins.
And then you had Peter King. He was on. I listened to him today on the radio. He's like, "Oh, I had to go see it." He said, "I was standing there talking to CeCe Sabathia." Yeah. I'm like, "Who wasn't there?"
What are you doing here?
Well, the thing about Colorado is they're going to get better, of course, like Mike said. The problem is they do not have defensive players enough of them to make plays. And I was telling you guys earlier, I went to school and played with a guy who is their defensive coordinator. His name's Charles Kelly. He used to be a defensive coordinator at Florida State.
Yep.
And Dion knew him from that area, and when Dion was coaching in Alabama, and brought him along. They don't have enough talent on defense. You saw the USC game.
Yeah.
I think it was 49, 41, 42.
41.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, they can't hold guys, but USC is going to score 6-7 touchdowns on anybody.
Right.
But-
and I think they also got up and got lazy.
Sure.
And then the early start didn't help anybody. It's a 9 a.m. start for the USC, and Boulder where it was 10 a.m. for the start, which is a very odd situation. But you're right. They are, and I'll tell you where they're also lacking. Their offensive line is makeshift. There's a couple guys that you don't see very much. Where you see a guard who looks like he's about 245, and they got a couple of those guys.
That's why
out
you have
there.
rolling pockets all the time.
Yeah.
They do that almost every play. And Shador is the real deal.
Right.
If he came out and went pro, he'd be in the first round draft pick at somewhere.
Somebody's going to jump on him because
But Deion's not letting him.
No, because he knows he's gonna be Archie Manning times 10 when Eli came out. If the wrong guy is picking, he'd be like, well, we might just do something else. Like he even said,
like the Cardinals.
He's like, I can make more money with NIL money than he can his first year contract in the NFL. So maybe we'll just wait it out. And so I mean, he'll do the right thing by his kid. I'm sure. Of
I'd
that.
like to go see a game. I'm sure you guys would.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, I've driven by that stadium in Boulder. Wow, it's pretty cool. It's spectacular. It's a little raised up a little bit. Pretty cool.
How do you think they'll finish? You see them as like a 7-4 team, something like that.
That's a possibility, but think about that conference. That conference was they weren't going to be competitive. That's what all the experts said in the beginning, and that's why you play the games,
right?
Because did anybody think that Oregon State with DJ Ugalele was going to do what they have done so far?
The whole conference is overachieved.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they're all going to be playing each other at some point soon.
Well, so that's you to say. So who do they got left? They got Utah, Oregon State, Washington State, Washington, UCLA, the Arizonas,
USC.
Yeah. So they've got a tough schedule. If they're bowl eligible, he's coach of the year.
Colorado, yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. From going from last year to this, he's already got 3 times the amount of wins they had last year.
Yeah, they had 1.
Yeah. My Venice math is still right.
You got it. 3 times 1. But no. So he's made the story. He's self-promoted. He put it out there, and everybody took a big bite out of it. It's just going to be, I think, what'll happen is there'll be a fade to it, because if it does become sort of like where they're getting beat up and there's some injuries, and there's always an attrition rate with college football, I think people will back off the story. They'll still make the highlight reel,
right?
And the end of the college wrap-up shows, you'll see what they're doing, and maybe they'll still be promoting Shador as a potential Heisman guy or whatever. But he did what he needed to do. Mission accomplished, and we'll see how long he stays.
That was always my
much
thing,
better
John.
he gets it.
Was how long is he going to stay? Is he going to get wooed by somebody else down the road?
Right.
Oh yeah.
I mean, can you see Dion really being there for 10 years? I don't.
No.
But do you take him at his word that he does not want to go to the pro game?
No, but I could see him going to a bigger college school.
I can too, but is it more of an accomplishment to build up something that where Colorado was? Mm-hmm. And with the portal that's in play, and with his personality and the people that he's attracting to the program, I can see the fast track for them versus 2 years and almost getting to the top of the mountain, and then we're going to pack up the circus and we're going to go to some other program.
Yeah, I could see him giving a 4-year commitment to Colorado, and then from that point forward, depending on how well he's doing and what program opens up. I mean, I probably mentioned just in passing a couple of places if he landed would be look out kind of moments. Miami being one of them. I know that's a big rival against Florida State, but if he went there, I mean that would be a scary proposition. But I look at places like does UCLA open up at some point in time, because then he's in LA, he's got the whole opportunity. Big Ten, he's in the big conference there, so I think that's a spot. I think he shines in a lot of places that are. Being in Boulder, he's as far out in the weeds as he's ever going to be.
Yeah,
he's going to go back to a much more populated area, populated place, and try to land in one of the bigger conferences and show what he's made of.
I think that he ends up, if that's the case, I believe that he ends up in somewhere that he's familiar with.
Well, it's not going to be Florida State.
Well, no.
And what is that feud they got going on between him and Danny Cannell? And then Deion saying he's not a Florida State guy.
We have a liquored up quarterback. that was given
Listen, Danny Cannell it seems like I always liked him, but he's the guy. He might be the guy who he might have 50 like unbelievably, I wouldn't say, but weird comments about players, situations. He comes up with some winners every once in a while.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Oh, this is Danny Cannell being Danny Cannell
Right.
again."
No, but you could never see him at Florida State then. If they were
No, but I
not that they need a coach now.
Well,
of course.
right. His comfort zone, I believe, is in Texas because after he he coached high school
Cowboys.
Well, I think A&M is the destination
think
spot
about
for him,
that.
if it happens.
The only thing is, I don't know that Texas A&M would fit his culture, or the culture fits him, because that is that's a party school, and he's really not about partying, but the military aspect, and they don't like the.
Well, what they do have is a lot of money.
Oh,
Because if you go back and watch in the days when there was the old Southwest Conference, they had the most money.
Yeah.
Texas didn't need to spend the money because they had the name recognition, but the Texas A&M was always fighting with the other guys throwing a bunch of money at people.
Go back to the original Pony Express.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine him? I mean, he does have a religious background.
You mean the SMU thing?
Yes. So you can imagine him there with that money because they have money.
Speaking of Texas A&M, they look strong. Now that they got their quarterback got hurt and Max Johnson comes in, Brad Johnson's son,
Finally.
lefty, lights it up last week, lights it up this week, and their defense is outstanding. I'd watch out for them. In fact, they're playing Alabama next week.
Yeah.
And we'll probably get into that a little bit, but I'm going to call my shot right now and say A&M's going to beat them at home. Against Alabama.
But that right now, I have Alabama as a 4-loss team in my mind.
Yeah.
I just don't see them. It's quarterback is Milroe. Don't see him as being a guy who's going to pull out a lot of tough SEC games. So but I mean I could be wrong. Nick Saban's. It's hard to go against him.
It is.
But it doesn't look like he has a team this year.
I heard somebody saying, and I agree with this a lot, is that Saban was slow to change to the fast-paced game. He was.
He fought it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And now he had bought into it, but the strange situation for him, of all people, is he got caught with a roster that's not built for that.
Right.
And his coordinator changes almost every year.
Yes.
That's got to be tough.
It does. And at some point in time, the continuity or lack thereof is biting.
Yeah, you're seeing it.
Right. So I think what's going to happen is that, don't kid yourself, that program is loaded with big uglies that like the ground and pound.
Right.
I do think that what happens is he might go back to the 3 yards in a cloud of dust and beat you up.
Well, I thought it was bizarre last year when Jahmyr Gibbs came from Georgia Tech and didn't really fit because remember, Alvin Kamara started at Alabama and he just didn't fit in the mold. He wasn't the workhorse that needed him to be. He was what he is now in the NFL, right?
Right.
He goes to Tennessee and he sort of didn't quite fit in there either. Kind of got lost in the shuffle. But he didn't have a guy like it was year after year. It was the quarterback and the running back, and they were the same type of guy.
Right.
Game managers that could do a lot of good stuff. They had some experience in the program. They're definitely team leaders. And you had the Mark Ingrams and you had the I'm drawing a blank now. But all the guys that followed, Derrick Henrys and all those guys.
Najee Harris.
Yeah. I mean, those are just 3 right there. But they're unbelievably powerful, strong, very, very focused football players.
Physical.
Very
Physical.
similar style.
Well, they looked actually putrid against USF. We were talking about that earlier, John. But
Yeah.
nasty rainstorm slowed them down a little bit, but their offense looked terrible. They switched quarterbacks since then, maybe twice now. I think.
They're back to
they committed.
no rule.
Yeah, they committed what they needed to do.
For now.
Well, good segue right there, Bill, because you mentioned USF. So one of the things I want to ask you guys about as well, any early season takeaways from the Florida schools? Any surprises in that situation? And Bill, you just mentioned USF.
Yeah, they're 2-0 in the conference, which is great.
Absolutely.
But they played Rice and Navy and beat them soundly. They have Memphis and Tulane coming up. I'm going to give them a wait and see to that, but they're impressing me so far. I think we talked about a month ago. We had them on the lower echelon of the Florida teams.
Right.
But of course, Florida State is up there. Miami's doing well. We'll get to them shortly, but they're a big surprise for me. But I'm going to wait to see what they do the next couple games before I give them heavy plaudits.
The Tulane game is the one I think that will be the kind of read the tea leaves, see where they're at.
Because Tulane was obviously a very good team last year.
And they're
New Year's Six bowl.
They're going to go to a bowl game this year.
Yeah.
that guy has done done a wonderful job with that program.
He's going to be somewhere else soon.
That's why,
But I know he's an older guy, but I think he's be hard not to.
Isn't that like a Rich Brooks type, older guy?
And I think the money is what will eventually lure him away at some point in time.
Right.
Real quick, kind of a little comparison to our first talk there about Dion. What if Dion was at USF doing what Alex Golish is doing right now? Because he played Alabama tough. He's won his conference games because, remember, Dion beat TCU, which was not the TCU of last year. Beats a Nebraska team that's struggling. Michigan housed them. And then you go and you play Alabama tough. My goodness, that's as good a resume as Dion had at Colorado at this point, I would think.
That was the TCU win was all about optics as far as, man, that is a great win. But the substances, that's not the same team.
No, it's not.
But that's what he needed. And he pulled it off. He pulled it off. And everybody's looking at it like, oh, my God, look what they did.
You can get up to the plate, but if you swing and miss,
right?
He didn't. He called his shot and got it done right.
Now, I will say this, that if he did end up in USF with the same notoriety that's going on now, that might as well be the biggest Hoover vacuum in the state of Florida because that's going to suck all the oxygen out of the programs.
Right.
You can get by like on our quote-unquote teams that we root for. We're going to get ours. But it's hard to get yours when they're enamored with him. And we have a lot of kids that are leaving this state going
out there.
So
now you're going an hour up the road.
Yes,
and he'll turn Ray J into a.
You guys are crazy.
Sellout.
He's not going to USF.
No.
What if it happened? If it happened,
I don't think they had the facilities to support him yet. But I understand.
But and the conference is another thing too.
It would be that the stadium that Dion built, the house.
But I'm saying if you think about it, I mean, it's the market, it's the whole thing, and you sort of could have pulled a team that was destitute last year and pulled them up with them. All right, going to Florida State real quick. Big win against Clemson. Cobbled together. I wouldn't say it was like it was a defensive for a little bit, and then they made some plays, and lo and behold, it's a win up in Death Valley.
It was a good win. It was a needed win because it broke the streak. It's been way too long. For whatever circumstances, we got caught in a bad run of teams. We had a coach quit on us that it basically imploded our program. But having said that, we had a chance when he was still there. We should have won at least once or twice when he was right before he left.
Right.
And we got to where we got. Now, I do like what Norvell is doing. I think that he is doing it brick by brick. He's building a good foundation. And I do say that I think that he has used the portal probably better than anybody has. And Dion is probably going to take a page from that book because he has to. If he's going to get to where he wants to quick.
You can't. It's great to have an unbelievable freshman class, but the freshmen.
Yes, exactly.
So how are you? I mean, do you put them all out there, get their brains beaten in?
Right.
Some of them have injuries. Some of them can't handle the life.
And it's
a different story altogether.
Beat the competitive spirit, crush them. If you put them out too soon.
Sure.
So
now you watched Florida State play a couple of games, obviously. And so did you, John. Do you see them as a top 4 team right now? Because I don't, even though they're up there.
Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'll let you go first. I'll go first. I'll let you go after that. Here's what I think about them. I think that but the fact of the matter is, if they can run table through the ACC, which is tough. Okay, even if they have one loss that's a good loss, okay, call it whatever, and win the ACC championship, I'm really convinced that the SEC West is going to gobble each other up. They're going to have 2 or 3 losses in the West, and I think that team, Georgia is very, very, very gettable.
They are gettable.
They have not played well in the first half of games. They have they turned it on against South Carolina, but it didn't look like they were doing much of anything. I'm not sold on their new quarterback, like I'm not sold on Alabama's new quarterback. And it's eventually there's an attrition rate. You're going to lose at some point in time, and especially in that conference. So I think that's why Florida State could be in that top 4.
My family, as you know, are Bulldogs. It goes back to the quarterback. I believe I had doubts about him in the beginning of the season, but he's playing well despite the offense coordinator.
You talking about Florida State's?
I'm talking about the Georges. Because we were
Beck. You're
talking about
the
Georgia.
quarterback is Carson Beck, right?
Carson Beck.
He didn't play great last week, though.
But listen, he's playing within the system, and I don't know if you know who the OC is.
Yeah, I do.
All right, his brand, Mike Bobo,
Yeah.
Yep.
is not It's definitely different than Monken. I mean, Monken had used a lot of motion and sets, crossers, and Bobo doesn't really do that. It's kind of they're still searching for an identity.
But if they're hiding him a little bit still, which they seems to be, they are, and not letting him win games, just not letting him lose. At some point, he's going to turn it on, and they have a lot of tough schedules.
John has said this
games on their
before, though.
schedule.
There's not when you don't have a set identity. It's like, okay, we're going to run these plays, 4 running plays. Right. All right, well, that's not going to work. But then we're going to run 4 passing plays. Well, that didn't work. You don't get into any kind of a flow or a kind of a scheme, and Bobo, everywhere he's been, his first go round in Georgia was not that good.
Well, I think the biggest problem is they lost 2 tackles in the draft.
Yes.
They had a person die in an unfortunate accident.
Yep.
Yeah, well, he was going too, though.
And they had another person that got hurt in line. So they got a makeshift line right now, and they're having problems moving the ball.
Your success is going to cause you problems down the road because guys are leaving early and all that stuff. So yeah, and I think you're right. I think that that's what I've seen. They're losing coordinators. They're losing these people, and it's kind of hard to retool it every time. Look, sometimes like you look at a guy like Stetson Bennett. I mean, looks like he's 5 foot nothing,
right?
Troublemaker, Dennis the Menace kind of guy.
But he is in rehab.
But he goes out there and he sort of sparkles, so to speak, in the position. But because he it wasn't about him. It was about him distributing things where they need to be, being a guy a little older who understood.
No, he did
what was
wonderful
going on
last year. Yeah.
And a guy like that, and you say, so where's the 5 stars? Well, they don't always turn out to be the 5. They take time. They take time to learn, and I think that's where Georgia is. Good. Listen, if we're sitting here 4 months from now, we're like, well, Georgia won 3 in a row. I'm not surprised either, but I do feel like that they are gettable, and there could be a situation with that in particular. Now, one other real quick tack out of the SEC, Big Ten football seems to be dominated between Ohio State and Michigan. Penn State's that was my point. So it's Ohio State and Michigan. Harbaugh's got an easy schedule. Looks like he can kind of coast to the Ohio State game if that's the case. But do you feel like there is is it really the Big 2 and not the Big 10 or whatever, the 14 or where they are now? How do you feel about that? Because I really don't think – I mean, Penn State has shown potential, but it seems like every year they just sort of fall flat against the wrong teams.
Well, they're going to have a chance because they play Michigan obviously late.
Right.
And the Michigan plays them late, and they play Ohio State almost I think 2 weeks after. So they're going to be able to prove it on the field. I think Penn State is for real, but I don't think they're Michigan good this year. They may be Ohio State good this year because Ohio State doesn't look as dominant as they used to as well.
And I thought that's what I was going to get
at.
Just
ask Lou Holtz.
Yeah, well, it's funny about that too. I mean, maybe you get mad because you're actually something that was exposed.
Yeah, that was a little
because it was
a little over the top coming. I mean, from him just responding to a coach and B the media. He's just gonna hey, we'll just win the games in front of us. That's all we can do. That should have been the response.
No doubt.
Well, speaking of Ohio State, you guys watched the Notre Dame game a couple weeks ago. 10 guys on the field, the last 2 plays.
Well, did you hear the explanation?
Yeah, because he didn't want to get a penalty from the quarter-yard line to the eighth of an inch yard line.
And that's the thing. That makes that I understand.
Makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense
because he ran over left tackle where the guy was supposed to be.
I'm going to give you. I'm going to use the Florida situation. We put 13 players in the field this week that couldn't stop Kentucky, right? But the real thing is this: sometimes the moment is too big for you. Yep. Sometimes it takes you to grow into your position, like it takes the freshman quarterback to grow in his position. Marcus Freeman looks like he's got the right attitude. He's got some pedigree to him, but that was a lot right there. And he knew it was on the line, and you start to overthink things.
Yeah.
Or you forget things because you're so caught up. And if you watched the Duke game this week with Notre Dame, they almost blew that one. They had so many penalties during the game.
And it's not that these guys don't know X's and O's and it's in the pressure of the game to be the guy who can make the call and make the play. It's a huge advantage for these teams to do that stuff. Look, even Jim Harbaugh, talking about Michigan, he dumbs it up every time he plays in a big game. He does things that's like, what are you doing? It's like you totally out of character plays. You're like, that makes no sense. And it's like, well, I thought that. Well, why don't you just stick to the plan?
Well, you have a play chart in front of you. It says if we're fourth in this, here's
that's
my 5,
the point.
6 plays.
Yeah, but I agree.
I don't think that
the crowd gets going.
I don't think at Notre Dame it said put 10 guys in the field, and Napier said see if you can sneak 2 more guys out there, so maybe nobody don't notice.
I will say the 3 teams that we just talked about, there is a similarity between all 3 of them, and one is surprising to me is that Notre Dame is way more physical this year than I've seen them.
Yeah,
in quite some time, and I don't know if that's the coach, gearing up toward that. But Harbaugh has finally gotten his team the last few years. That they are a physical team. They are going to knock some heads.
Listen, they're all impressive.
Yeah.
I just think that we're looking at it from the perspective of there's blemishes there, and who's going to overcome their blemishes.
Right.
And we don't talk about the who's going to win or anything like that. But I think there's upcoming. Bill, I know you have some games you wanted to mention that are coming up that you're looking at.
Eventually, yes. And one team I just want to mention real quick. All right, we forgot about Miami a little bit.
Oh no, we haven't.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So they beat
not the Dolphins.
No,
Don't worry.
They beat
the other ones.
They beat a really good Texas A&M team a couple weeks ago. Yeah. Who's actually better now with a better quarterback and has a great defense. Not much, they're kind of, I think, down on the 16th or 17th in the rankings right now.
Yeah.
And they're 4-0, so they're probably the lowest ranked undefeated team that's in the top echelon. They still have a shot in ACC, which everybody seems to forget.
October 21st.
And I know Florida State plays them in November every year, and that's coming up. So
is it November?
I believe so.
It could be because October 21st is Duke.
But again, you're right, and there's a lot of teams that are going to sort of start to sniff that top 10 because they're going to be every year there's one weekend where everybody gets upset and everything tumbles around. And
that's the thing is that I think that the Big Ten is going to suffer again because they have somebody that whatever Purdue is losing team they beat Ohio State.
Right. Maryland's a good Big Ten team.
Out of the blue, I was like, well, how did that happen?
Right.
Well,
the Pac-12 is the same thing. We talked about it earlier. There's Oregon, Washington State, USC. All undefeated, all pretty good teams. You can make a case for maybe one team beating any of the other one.
Right.
Absolutely.
No, and then they gobble it and they play out west and they kind of lose the national media spotlight.
If somebody can go there and win all of that, or maybe it's a one loss, can they still get into the Final Four? Depending how things shake out.
Well, I have friends always say, "What do you think about this week?" You know what? It doesn't matter what I think. It matters what happens at the end of the week by week because it's all going to come out in the wash.
Right.
The games have to be played. A lot of this stuff is just, the media, they get the clicks, hey, they wanted to read the stories. But, by the way, I just want to say the Washington quarterback, Michael Penix.
Yes.
Washington
Tampa
State.
Bay Tech.
We saw him.
Washington State, didn't he?
No, Washington.
We played against him.
That's right. Yep. He's a lefty, right?
Yep.
Yeah. He
reminds me of Tua a little bit.
That cat is...
First play from scrimmage against Venice, he went 80 yards for a touchdown.
And he was like a track star.
Yeah.
It was like, whoa.
He could throw it. He just didn't have the dudes around him for that game. But he definitely was one of the more impressive guys we played against. Him and J.J. McCarthy up at Michigan.
Right.
He's the best IMG quarterback I ever saw.
Yeah.
That guy could roll and hit. There was I don't know which, maybe still at Florida State. It was a Florida State receiver on IMG. He was, I remember exactly going towards the Intercoastal Waterway, and he threw a ball he's like flip, and it went 40 yards on a rope and hit that kid in a window about this big.
Right.
I'm like, whoa, that was some talent right there. So he showed it.
My Auburn transfer playing in his 9th year right now in Oregon Bo Nix.
He's a legacy.
Listen,
Chris Weinke has nothing over him now. He's 28 years old, Bo Nix, and he's still playing in college.
Listen, but he's exciting and he makes some plays.
He makes it happen.
No, they're probably the scariest team for me that I see out there in the Pac-10.
Well, and Lanning is doing a nice job as a coach out there as well. He went a little off the rails a couple weeks ago, but I think he's got the right. It's not sort of laid back Oregon anymore. He's got that let's go, let's burn the building down kind of attitude.
Similar to Dave Shaw when he was at
Stanford.
Stanford.
Yeah.
That coach with that talent in Oregon.
Yeah. Dangerous.
That scares me.
That's dangerous.
The Phil Knight backers talk about Dion.
Yeah.
That's the Dion of the far, far west.
Right.
Right.
Any other games you want to point out there, Bill?
Coming up. Oklahoma, Texas this week, October 7th.
Yeah, that's a big game.
Red
Maryland,
River shootout.
Maryland, Ohio State.
Okay.
October 7th. Oregon, Washington, the 14th.
That's a really big game. I hope they get the right they get a national audience for that.
I
one.
would like to see like one of the 8 o'clock games.
Yes,
That
I don't
would
want.
be
I
a
don't want to see him at
perfect setting.
4 o'clock on
Yeah,
Fox. I want to see him in
right.
major. Yeah,
USC, Notre Dame, October 14th.
big game.
Penn State, Ohio State, October 21st.
Where's that at? Is that at Penn State or?
I'm not sure about what that
Because
was.
that also, I mean, Captain Obvious, that plays a lot into.
Yeah,
I think
they
Penn
have
State needs to play it.
They have a big home field advantage.
Yes,
they play way better at
absolutely.
home.
Well,
Way
I
better.
know they played Michigan, but they're making that a noon game, so there's nobody to white out.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
later in the year. But then the other big one we can talk about later, I guess, if you want, Kentucky, Georgia. Can Kentucky get over the hump versus Georgia?
Yeah.
A vulnerable Georgia team after this week?
Yep.
Well, the thing is that it all about resting on your laurels. And I know from week to week, okay, they beat a team 3 times.
Right.
So are they now we're the kings of the walk?
No.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
So-
They get to that?
So here's what it is. I will tell you this: in the SEC, style matters.
Yeah.
Okay, Kentucky's style does not play well against Georgia. You know whose style plays good against Georgia? Tennessee.
Yeah.
Because they're going to make them. They're going to go and pick the pace up,
Race car
throw
mode.
it around, and it messes with them. When Malzahn was at Auburn, he messed everybody up doing that stuff, and so Georgia wants to control the clock. They're methodical. New coordinator, new quarterback. That's the game I could see it happen. But I will tell you this: Kentucky's getting better at Georgia's style. It will be a very good game.
Well, Auburn ran for over 200 yards on Georgia. Kentucky has that wonderful back. It's transfer from Vanderbilt.
Davis.
Ray Davis.
Yes, and that's going to be huge to watch. I think it's in Kentucky this week.
I think it's in Georgia.
It's in Georgia? Okay.
Yeah. Kentucky's defensive line, whether they went against what I don't know is Florida's line down, but they are monsters.
But every time Kentucky goes to the deep end of the pool, over the last 10, 15
They lose
years,
4.
Yeah.
They'll lose
drown.
games.
Yeah, well,
Missouri's coming up this week, and
Right.
it's like, oh, that's a bad spot. Yeah, it is, and that's the ones that they lose, and that's what he's got to
what I
get
was
better
talking
with.
about. After that mindset, okay, well we beat them 3 times.
They raise up. They're like here, like they fall almost to the lower end guys, and
Right.
they mess up it, and every once in a while they bump their head and they get in above it. They just can't seem to get over the threshold with all that stuff.
And, the other game I wanted to mention was this weekend was Alabama at Texas A&M. We talked about it earlier. I see an upset. I'm not even sure what the line is in that game, but
I don't. I would have to say A&M's got to be favored.
I would
at
say
home.
a home deal. It could be a number. If they are, that
if it's a
motivates
night
Nick Saban.
game, if it's that's going to be even tougher.
That's exactly really tough for them to go, especially with a quarterback who's not really reached his potential. That could be a scary proposition.
I'm just glad we got good games to watch this week. It
Yeah,
seems like we skip a week
finally.
every time.
Yeah,
and there was one good game.
But I think as time moves forward, as season goes on, all those games get a lot better. With that, we'll take our final break of the night and come back and do our What's Bugging Me section. And maybe some predictions as well. I was going to touch on the NFL about big stories. I'm like, we already talked about the big story.
Yeah.
It's Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. No doubt about it. With that, we'll take our final break of the night and come back here at Douglas Jeep and then I for One Sports.
What does Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram and Venice High football have in common?
The perfect team and the perfect lineup.
Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram will always go the extra yard, so you can score big with the area's best selection and savings. So if you're looking for a championship vehicle lineup,
And a dealership that tackles the competition.
visit Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice,
And if you're looking for a championship football lineup, check out the Venice High football team.
who supports Venice High football. Douglas does.
And we're back for the ever popular What's Bugging Me section, brought to you by Truly Nolan here on the 941 Sports Zone. And Bill Madden, since you're on the far left-hand side, you get to go first.
So I have 2 What's Bugging Me things.
Good.
And one of them you guys are going to comment on. First one being the Ryder Cup. So I tape it. I get up early and I watch it. Why is the U.S. players I just think there's so much babies and they're going so many different directions. And the Europe team is kind of like, all together. It just kind of made me upset that they got their butt handed to him
from the minute it started.
Yeah.
Overseas. So I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to watch some highlights or
Oh
watch
yeah,
some
yeah.
of the live ones.
In the morning, I was peeking it. Yeah.
But they looked so discontent, and the captain of the U.S. looked like he had no control over anything. Zach Johnson.
Yeah.
It just looked terrible, and it bugged me how they represented the U.S. and how they played and how they acted. I just did not like it at all. That was my number one.
Right.
And my number two is if I see that stupid Gary the Bachelor ancient guy on my commercial
the Golden Bachelor?
Yes, one more time in front of me and shoving it down my throat. I'm going to puke. So no more of him. Hopefully that show's over soon.
Well, you've got about 14 to 20 more weeks of roses being handed out.
The Golden Bachelor.
The Golden Bachelor, what does he get?
I think the guy's like 80 or something, isn't he?
Will you take this Geritol? I'll
Will you take this little blue pill? I need to.
No worries.
So those are my books.
Now I got to watch it.
Yeah, I know.
Damn.
What are you going to watch for?
Oh, I really don't have anything bugging me except for the same old traffic. You know, we're getting ready for season.
Well, it started a little earlier. I don't know if you noticed, like the last week or so, I tried to pull out of Walmart the other day, and I was like, well, this is taking me about a minute and a half longer than it did 10 days ago. So
yeah, and it's when the first weather cool up north, it's gonna be like shaking the hornet's nest down here, except for they're probably shaking the sloths because the blue hares.
Yep.
Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah.
But considering you're like one of them, you're one of them now.
No, I know. What am I talking about?
The no hairs.
I'm a no hair. No, that's it. It's traffic. You know, it's hard to get a gauge on. I got to get here to there. It's 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Then next thing you know, it's 25 minutes.
Yeah.
You know.
No doubt. No doubt.
First world problem.
Well, Bill, I'm going to tell you something. You kind of got me with the Ryder Cup. So it's good though. I mean, because I'm the same perspective that you gave, because I said the same thing. Especially I liked Zach Johnson. Seemed like always like a nice guy. But he looked way over his skis on that deal.
Absolutely.
And I thought it was interesting. This is the thing that bothers me. Here's how I was going to take it. We talk about making the Ryder Cup team for 2 years, starting now. And they're like, oh, well, he's got to get the Ryder Cup. It's about the Ryder Cup. And they're all like, and they're saying, well, Live Golf, which I'm not a Live Golf guy at all.
Right.
Well, they're not going to come in here because you know why? They're not going to play in the Ryder Cup. And they didn't let nobody could play in it's about keeping them out of the Ryder Cup. It's this unbelievable experience, unbelievable whatever you want to call it. And they go out there and look like
garbage.
Right. And here's the thing. It came up to me from somebody that I did not expect to say it. But they're like, you know, they didn't play golf for 5 weeks before they went up and did that. Wouldn't you think they might see if they get on the course? Hey, can I play a couple $100? I'll pay the course.
Right.
Or find a course that maybe mimicked it from the grass or whatever it may be.
If you're playing Wimbledon or a tennis Davis Cup match, wouldn't you think you practice before you win?
Well, they have warm-up matches that on the same surface.
Yeah, same surface. The All Queens Club.
I don't. So I'm like, so what is it? So I just don't get it. Now, they won in the U.S. before. I get all that, but they make such a big damn deal about this, and then they come out, and then that's what happens. And by the way, what they need to tell them is this: if you're going to be in the Ryder Cup, you better learn how to play team golf, because they can't play team golf anywhere.
No,
they can't play team golf at Waterford. They can't play team anywhere.
You two guys could have done better than Koepka and Scheffler did in that 9-7 loss.
That's
Come on.
Johnny's shoulders could probably have been sore from carrying me.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. And then Koepka was a little bit,
He's a weird, strange guy.
He is. But listen. But at least
standoffish.
He was.
Majors
I
or
thought
bust.
it was very. Yeah, I thought it was very cool that the other guys are like, no, we want him on the team because he's got that instinct. But they didn't pass it on to them.
Yeah.
Or that edge that they needed to have.
They're like, I'll go get mine. You guys better do the same. That's kind of the attitude I get from him. And then the other guys, I heard rumors of, we want to get paid for this. I'm like, come on.
Cantley with
Cantley and even Shoffley, I think.
But Cantley's a guy.
Cantley and Shoffley are tight.
They're both those guys.
Yeah.
They're looking for contracts for different things. They're just doing whatever. So yeah, unfortunately for that was mine as well. But that's good. I mean, it is because I think it was off the page a little bit to go that route, but it was obvious when you watched it they were not prepared for that whatsoever. Any predictions? You said a game or two that you're looking at, maybe, Bill?
Oh, for this
How about,
weekend?
yeah,
Right,
for this
if you got something.
Kentucky, Georgia. I'm really looking forward for that. And the Maryland Ohio State game. A couple years ago, I watched Maryland run Ohio State out of the stadium. I don't think it's going to happen now, but it's a possibility because it is at Maryland. So I'm going to look forward to that one.
I'm looking forward to see what Texas and Oklahoma, because that is one of the games we grew up with, and it's good again.
They're both undefeated. Yeah.
And if Oklahoma takes this to Texas, then what happens?
Right.
Does Oklahoma jump into the top 5 because they're same conference, and they've beaten the big dog in that conference? And that's kind of still Texas has got to prove something. So that's what I want to see.
No, I totally agree with you. I think you're exactly right. I will say this. I'm going to make a prediction now. Okay, but it's a little bit down the road, another prediction. But I'm going to say this. This is for you, Francis, Miami Dolphin. For you, Miami Dolphin guy. Miami Dolphins will win the AFC East.
Oh, when they play Buffalo in Miami, they'll win that game.
Okay, they got you, when you roll out 70 in one game. Don't let the think that's the deal. Okay, there had to be a letdown. There had to be a letdown.
Of course, and I watched that game. It was back and forth to about quarter and a half, and then Buffalo took over after that.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And then also, Mike, since you mentioned it as well, Texas, Oklahoma, I think Texas wins handily.
Think so?
I don't think this is the one they're going to lose. They'll lose a game, but I don't think this is the one because I'm not sold on Oklahoma right now.
Right.
Dylan Gabriel being their quarterback, and he's pretty good, but Oklahoma they've lost a little of that flair that I think they had with Lincoln Riley. I think they're good, but I don't know if they're good as Texas. I think Texas is really coming. They're feeling it now after that Alabama win.
A little bit SEC preview, Oklahoma, Texas for next year.
Yeah. Could be. No, that's going to be fun. When they come in the conference, it's going to be a destination place to go to as far as all our SEC.
By the way, and you had said earlier in this segment that the schedule now, we're getting into the games. Well, when they have everybody, there's not going to be this big of a buildup to get to these games.
Right.
You're going to have this right out of the gate.
The whole time. Right. Everyone's going to be the one to watch.
So it's going to be good viewing for several years to come.
This could be the year, and we say that every year, that a 12-team playoff makes more sense than anything. This could be the year because.
What'll happen is it'll be something. Somebody will suffer, and we'll say, "Thank God we have it next year," and we'll all be happy with that for sure. All right, thank you for watching the Truly Nolan Bugging section. And you guys for participating in that as well. But we are ready to go now. We're done.
All right.
It got dark.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. Thanks for having us.
It's a time change.
It's 4:00 in the morning. No.
Remember, tip your bartenders.
Mike Lay, Bill Madden. Put it on your calendar here. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing this again for sure during football season.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you guys for everything. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks,
and
John.
thank you for watching the 941 Sports Zone. I'm John Massoni for Mike Lay, for Bill Madden, for Francis Haynes sitting over there doing his great job. Dolphin fan. We'll see you next time here on the 941 Sports Zone.